And I'm glad to say that in all of the instances that we have been able to succeed, and we have, by the way, and I say this with a fair bit of pride, but also with humility, that we've had a 100% success rate in India of whatever has been reported to us. We've been able to push back, escalate, resolve those instances with successful culmination, uh, typically in the form of return of the bribes in totality. In many instances, apologies tenders. Apart from them, in several instances, the officers have been transferred out of the ports, as an administrative backlash, or the departmental disciplinary action has been initiated against them. So, in all these 100% cases, success stories that we have had, this is only because I've been able to reach out, and I'll come to that how this public sector outreach has been extremely vital, because that's led to this buy-in at the highest levels.
Good day, everyone. I'm Captain Gaurav Rana from CM Beyond, and today we will talk on a very relevant topic, a topic where not many people may have discussed, which is on maritime anti-corruption. And I have the honor and privilege of having Mr. Deepak Shetty, sir, in this podcast today. Mr. Shetty is from the IRS, the Administrative Services, and has been the Director General of Shipping. And more relevant to our podcast, he's a senior advisor with the MACN, Maritime Anti Corruption Network. It's great to have you, sir, with us today in this podcast, and thank you for sparing out time. If you could tell a little bit more about yourself, sir, and then we'll probably get into the MACN part more, sir.
Thank you very much at the outset, Captain Gaurav Rana. It's an absolute privilege to be here amidst all of you in this podcast. My name is Deepak Shetty. I was a former career civil servant. I had 36 and a half years of career at the senior civil service levels. I belong to the 1980 batch of the Indian Revenue Service Customs and Central Excise as a direct recruit officer. I rose initially from the rank of an assistant commissioner all the way up to secretary in the Government of India, which is the highest civil service level. I spent about 25 years doing discharging core functions in my parent department. However, I had two very salient and very fascinating stints in what we call as ex-cadre or central deputations. Initially, mid-career, when I was in the rank of Director Government of India, I had the opportunity of serving as Additional Textile Commissioner in the office of the Union Textile Commissioner under the Ministry of Textiles in Mumbai for a good 5.25 years. And eventually, towards the fag end of my career, I got to spend the last 6 years in the Indian Flag or Maritime Administration, which is better known as the Directorate General of Shipping under the Ministry of Shipping of the Government of India. I started my stint as Additional Director General of Shipping and second in command for 4 years. And back to back on a consecutive basis, I took over as Director General of Shipping and did 2 full calendar years in 2015 and 16 as the head of the Indian Maritime Administration. Towards the end of my civil service career, I was elevated to the rank of full secretary in the Government of India, and which is where I retired on superannuation at the end of 2016. And as of now, amongst the various portfolios which I discharge, I'm currently serving, more relevant to the theme of the podcast today, as Senior Advisor and Head of India Operations of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, popularly known as MACN as an acronym. Thank you for that opportunity to introduce myself.
So absolutely great to have you here, sir. And as I said, I think your term during the administration, that's what I probably more relate to. I think you brought a lot of changes, a lot of positivity. And thank you for that, sir, for your contribution towards the Indian shipping. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. I was blessed to be at the right place at the right time. And thanks to all the stakeholders, including a slew of my colleagues who all contributed to whatever little I could get to do. But I recall with immense pleasure and very, very fond memories of my 6 year stint. Thank you so much again.
Yes. Thank you. Right, sir. Moving to the theme today, I'm not sure how many people would be aware about MACN. So, if you could start by telling us.
Sure. The proposition of MACN was seeded in the year 2011, back then by Merck's as an in-house vertical. They foresaw the value proposition of pushing back against corruption and bribes in the maritime domain, what today has fast-tracked and become a movement in the form of, what is, I mean, more relatably known as ESG, the environment, social, and governance. The governance being the key pivot of it all. So this has been around for about a good 14 years. MACN was, as I said, the origin is attributed to Merck's, but then pretty much within about a year, it gained significant traction. It attracted attention from like-minded stakeholders in the entire maritime value chain. And soon enough, a large number of members signed up. And over the last 14 years, this has exponentially blossomed into a veritable movement. As we speak, we have over 220 members globally who are part of this campaign as full-fledged members, both in the maritime and the logistics supply chain domains. And this is across the world. And just to give you a piece of stat, they represent around 60% of the global shipping tonnage. So it's a force to reckon with. It's a force multiplier. And then over a period of time, it has gained significant global attention. I'll just sort of refer to two strands. One is in the year 2021, 2022, 1st June, the FAL Committee of the International Maritime Organization came up with a very, very significant document, which is a six-page worthwhile read. It's available and you can download it, and I would highly urge and recommend that those of you who are interested must peruse it. This is entirely devoted to the paradigm of corruption and how to combat it in the maritime space, what the thinking process in the FAL committee and more importantly at the IMO was at that point in time. So there are a number of do's and don'ts, advocacies, best practices which are proposed there. Towards the end, that's in paragraph 6 of this FAL committee document, it's 48 circ dated 1st June 2022, which emerged out of significant deliberations in the FAL committee and also in the Maritime Safety Committee of the IMO, is a categorical recommendation to the global shipping community represented by the member states of the IMO, who number about 173 plus as we speak, as also an advocacy and a pitch to the shipping companies worldwide to lean on the MACN and report cases of maritime corruption to the MACN. So this, we believe, is a validation of the body of work of MACN for about 11 years up until then. And fast forward, there is another significant development which also has gained, which has added traction to the MACN's value proposition. This is entirely coincidental, not driven by the MACN. It's just so that it was a recognition by stakeholders. There are a few MNCs operating in the maritime domain. For instance, I can name just one or two of them, and they're just illustrative. One of them is Rio Tinto. The other one is ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. They have, over the period of time, stipulated inter alia, or among other things, that for purposes of eligibility criteria for participation in their global tenders, one of the key components would be that a person who was an organization interested in participating in the tender must have membership of the MACN. So this is again, we believe that this is a mirror or a reflection of the value of the work that MACN has done over a period of time. So this, I think, is significantly relevant because there is this widespread recognition and appreciation of the kind of work, both the extent, the depth, and the width of the work that MACN does.
Absolutely, sir. And as you said that it started with a private organization, then went into more of an industry collaborative organization, being recognized by the highest administrative body, and then again from the private side, companies requiring people who are companies who are tendering for their projects to have this member. So it's an amazing growth. Plus for the right cause. I think
Sure.
that's very
So if I
important.
may just supplement, if you, with your indulgence, the
Please.
MACN, in the course of its journey from 2011, it sort of, moved along. It was carved out of Merck's. It was hived out and parceled out to a body called as BSR, Business for Social Responsibility, which is very well recognized internationally as a key player in the ESG space. So the it was driven by BSR for a while, but eventually, because of the sheer exponential growth in membership and the wider canvas and remit that was assigned to the MACN, it was towards the end of 2018, early 2019, it was set up as an individual entity of its own legal standing under the laws of Denmark. The reason why it is sort of emerging from Denmark is because of the origin from Merck's. So they found it historically that it was empirically more probably convenient to set it up in the laws of Denmark, which is now how the legal architecture of the framework of MACN is. Just to also add the context, the MACN Secretariat is housed in Copenhagen. And of course, it has global presence as we speak in 8 jurisdictions in different continents across the world. And the primary objective to get to revert to what you had alluded earlier is expressly to promote business integrity, transparency, accountability, due diligence, combat corruption and bribe in this, which is a very significant challenge. But one caveat which I wanted to place here is that the current remit of MACN is confined to the seaside, which I will expand as we go along in this conversation. And it is not, as of now, which is straddling the shore side for reasons which I will come back to in a while.
Right, sir. Thanks, Anodin. It's just been about 14 years since the concept started, and it's a great growth for the right reasons.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the MACN is present in about 8 countries right now. Would you want to dwell a little bit more in terms of where all the
Sure.
presence is? Where the key geographies there, which the organization
Absolutely.
is focusing on?
Indeed. So it straddles multiple geographies across continents. It began in terms of a physical footprint in Nigeria, a typically very difficult terrain to operate in. You've been a seafarer yourself. You understand the immense challenges in West Africa. So it began there just around the time when MACN was set up in 2011. So the MACN presence in the West African continent has been around in Nigeria in particular since 2011 for the past 14 years. Over a period of time, the MACN footprint also expanded to other countries such as Argentina, Ukraine, Egypt, again, somewhat challenging environment for mariners. And then it moved on to Indonesia. And it was towards the end of 2021 that there was a conscious thought process in the Secretariat and supported by funders, external funders, that it was about time that the Indian subcontinent was addressed with a primary focus on India, and to a lesser extent, not by any reckoning a derogatory or a pejorative a reference, in Pakistan and Bangladesh. So formally, the MACN was launched in India in Mumbai as on 27 July 2022. So as we speak, it is just about 3 years, a month that has been up and running here. So these are the 8 geographies or territories. But there is a thought currently which is engaging the attention of the Secretariat. And by the way, there is a board of directors of MACN, which I must highlight here, which is represented by industry representatives. It's entirely a voluntary position. The board comprises 7 members, of whom there is a chairperson, there is a vice chairperson, And then, of course, there are five members who represent different geographies, different stakeholder groups, and diversity to the extent that it is feasible. The current chairperson of MACN is MS Anne Shazel. She's the group legal lead of Cargill. Uh, so, and Mr. Jensen Oyston, he is of Ochfell. He's the current vice chairman. Until recently, Captain Rajesh Unni, the founder, executive chairman of Synergy, was the vice chairman before he stepped down just a few months ago.
Understood, sir. Understood. And so you mentioned we started Indian operations about 4 years back.
Three and a quarter years ago.
3 years and about 4 or 5 months back. Uh, so, sir, if you could also tell us a little bit more about the affiliations within India, if there is a separate board or if there is a separate decision-making body in India, and then how's the purview in India, please, and or the Indian subcontinent, please.
Yeah, so let me just amplify what we do in India. We have a lean setup, by no means mean, honestly. We had a three-member outfit. It was me, supplemented by two of my colleagues, Mr. Soumya Prakash Dalua, who is the program manager and the lead in India. And then until recently, we had Captain Raymond Schroff as a maritime expert and the help desk in charge. Captain Schroff has had a demoted office. So as we speak, it's just the two of us. But despite the fact that we may appear to be just two-member organization with a presence in India, that has not been a constraint whatsoever. Let me assure all the stakeholders who are listening in and tuning into this podcast that we truly have a pan-India presence as we speak. We are able to pretty much cover every single EXIM port, be it on the eastern or the western seaboard. And we are able to operate seamlessly and in a very effective and timely manner. And I'll come to the meat of what we really do. So now there are various activities which MACN does, if I can dwell. If you want me to dwell on that at this point. Now, in the 3 years and 1 month we've been around, of course, let me just sort of digress and come back to the governance issue that you alluded to. Primarily, the work is done by the two-member team in India under the overall supervision and the remit assigned to us by the Secretariat under the overall guidance of the Board of Directors. This is as far as day-to-day operations go. However, for purposes of trying to funnel industry feedback into what we do in India, it was expressly thought through and there was a felt need in the year 2023 that it was about time that a consultative body was set up purely as an advisory function, not to drive the day-to-day operations per se. And this was unique to India in as much as this is a setup not replicated anywhere. So effective from around May 2023, which is about 2.25 years, just under 1 year before the post the setup of the MACN, we have constituted a 7-member MACN India Advisory Committee, which is a unique proposition. The USP is it's a PPP, Public-Private Partnership pivoted body, headed by the chairperson of the Indian Ports Association. You're aware that the IPA, which is the acronym for that, is the constituent body for the 13 major ports which are wholly owned and administered by the Ministry of Shipping of the Government of India. So the chairperson of the IPA happens to be the senior most chairperson of one of those 13 ports. So the Ministry of Shipping has been very gracious to allow the chairperson to discharge his concurrent function as chairperson of the MACN India Advisory Committee. So that's worked very well. Along with him, we have 6 other members, and they represent a wide spectrum of stakeholder interest groups here. For instance, we have the chairperson of the CSLA, the Container Shipping Lines Association of India. We have the CEO of FOSMA. Then we also have the executive committee member of MASA. Then we have the executive committee member of MANSA. And lest I forget, the CEO of the INSA, the International Shipowners Association, as well as the India representative of Global MET, Global Maritime and Education, which is a representative body. The reason why we chose to have them also on board is because capacity building or human resource development is one of the key planks what we do in MACN. So we thought it fit that in the fitness of things, even Global Met must be represented. So as you can see, this is a seven-member consultative body which represents the largest interest groups. This body meets once in a quarter. Initially, it all had an in-person meeting, but over a period of time, for sheer convenience, apologies, it is now entirely a virtual meeting. Religiously, we meet once a quarter. There is an agenda that is set. The idea is to elicit feedback from the industry constituents as to whether we are doing things right or whether we can do something more incrementally. So that's a very value add proposition which they bring to the table. And we pay close heed to what they say. And we try and factor this in our day to day operations as we go along. So this collaboration as an institutional framework has worked exceedingly well. As I said, this is unique to India. And I think more power to it. Now, coming to the operations per se, the MACN fundamentally, and I mean, just a piece of digression, apart from the eight jurisdictions, it just occurred to me that there is a move to have possibly footprints of MACN at a physical level in three more countries in West Africa. That's a move. As and when it fructifies, I think you'll get an update going forward. So that'll hopefully, if, as and when that happens, it'll be a 11-member body, 11 jurisdiction body. The only restraint here is that it's a capacity. The capacity is constrained only by the resources which are available to it, and it's a two-stage funding process. Usually, it comes in as membership fee, which is 5,000 USD per annum every time a member signs up at a global level, supplemented by an annual subscription ranging from 7 to 10,000, primarily depending upon the kind of fleet size and the scale of the member. So these are the two. And then, of course, the tertiary supplement for resources is we have institutional funders who see value proposition what MACN does. For instance, Siemens had funded the work in the Indian subcontinent, primarily India, for a good 3 years until about September last year. So the constraint is only because of the funding availability, as and when the funds probably are available on a larger basis. I think the expansion will happen geographically as we move along. So if any questions you have, or I can continue with the kind of remit which we discharge. There are a couple of pieces to the kind of work that MACN does, which collectively, makes it worthwhile for the members. And may I also add here that the members are a very diverse profile. Your member eligibility is open for ship owning, ship managing, ship chartering companies, logistics supply chain players, port state control operators, flag state inspection entities, etc. You have port agents also who can come in. So the idea is to build an ecosystem where you have stakeholders who are actually impacted at a ground level in terms of what they confront by way of corruption or bribe, so that they become members and then they add muscle to this effort, which has to be on a sustained basis over a period of time. Now, reverting back to the kind of work that we do, the central piece of it all is the help desk which MACN offers. So there is an active, may I say, proactive help desk, which is available to not only the mariners on board merchant vessels, the captain, the chief officer, and the likes, but also to operating teams of various companies, as well as to agents. So anybody can reach out. The profile or the country profile of every jurisdiction where MACN operates is available on the website of MACN, which is www.macn.dk. I would encourage the viewers to kindly go and look it up. It's a very extensive profile of the MACN, very representative, and it's a worthwhile read. So the country profile is available where the point of contact in an emergency situation where there is a challenge with corruption or bribes, the name as well as the designation and the email ID and the phone number are available there. So, for instance, for India specifically, my colleague Mr. Soumya Prakash Daluva's profile is available there, so that whoever wants to reach out can do so. Broadly, this is a function which is available to members, but in India, we have ensured that we have not held back whenever there has been an outreach to us, even by non-members. Now, that's not driven by any commercial consideration that we try and persuade them as a sales pitch for them to become members. It's purely because we feel that we need to go out of the way to reach out and ameliorate the distress of seafarers. And I'll specifically refer at this point to two critical elements which we end up also concurrently discharging. One is, you're aware of the Maritime Labour Convention, the MLC, the Magna Carta for Seafarers, which is an ILO, International Labour Organization document going back to the year 2006. Now, in this institutional framework, which is international legislation, there is a paragraph which specifically states that maritime administrations and other agencies concerned in every jurisdiction shall do their utmost to ensure that no harassment or no aggressive behavior is meted out to the crew of any vessel. And we believe an aggressive behavior is also manifested by a demand for corruption, which is obviously illicit, because the power dynamics, the power equation is very skewed. And mind you, this is not institutional corruption. This is some rogue officers who have actually gone, errant. And so they exercise, shall I say, misuse the authority which is invested by law. And so they come in an aggressive stance. And so they are the receivers and the recipients, and the giver is unfortunately pressurized, which is the seafarer. So it's a very skewed, imbalanced equation. So we believe that by pushing back against corruption, the MACN is able to contribute to this specific clause of the MLC. And to that extent, that's a singular contribution of MACN to the compliance or fulfillment of the national obligation. So that's one piece. The second is, this is to sort of somersault and take you over to the FAL committee, the FAL Convention 1965 of the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, which is the global shipping regulator under the UN system. The FAL Convention has again a specific provision to the effect, and that's again an international legal instrument. The provision reads to the effect that all the stakeholder agencies involved must ensure, in terms of whatever processes that come into play, that the turnaround of cargo and loading of cargo, but also the crew, sign off and sign on, the discharge of the personal effects and ship stores wherever needed, to ensure that there is no delay in the turnaround of a ship, because delays, as we are aware, is clearly implicating it has monetary implications for the shipping companies. And I'll come to that, how we have actually been able to push back on that. So this is another contribution of MACN to the IMO's Falcon Convention. So in this sense, coming back to the centerpiece of the help desk that MACN offers, it's available, and we encourage all member companies to file, and this is an exhortation which we keep doing in terms of advocacy over a period of time, that then they should ideally file pre-arrival notices, or what we call as PANs, at least preferably 72 hours prior the arrival of the vessel into any port, be it in India or any of these other 7 jurisdictions. The underlying rationale for this advocacy is that the moment a PAN is filed, there is an automatic acknowledgement that the system generates from the MACN side. And generally there are 4 file folders which go back along with the auto-generated acknowledgement of receipt of the PAN. And these 4 file folders consist of a large number of advisories in the form of do's and don'ts. You know, what should be done, what should not be done. For example, empirically, we have seen, just to give you one illustration, we have seen number of cases where there is this misdeclaration on the part of the masters and the chief officers. And that has brought grief to many of the companies and the vessels. So we have now found and we have suggested that declaration should be complete and correct in all respects, lest you fall foul of the authorities in India. That's one. The second is in terms of the Telegraphic Act of India, you are not allowed to have a satellite phone active on board a vessel. That's prohibited, it's proscribed. We have seen instances where they've been active, they've been used on certain occasions, and that has been questioned, and those led to seizures on the part of the customs authorities. So we've advised that even if you carriage per se is not a bar, but you should not have it active as long as you're on the Indian coastline. So these are advisories which we keep feeding basis our empirical observations. The other thing that is available in this file folder is also that, in prominent locations of a vessel, you need to put out signages, posters, and visible banners, etc. Let's say, on the gangway, on the bridge, the smoke room, etc., wherever there is access and visibility, demonstrating typically the idea being to send a message across that this vessel is an MACN member vessel, and that anybody having ill intentions should not mess around with this, lest then there will be a counter reaction to them. So this is what comes as this file folders. And then once it goes there, concurrently, my colleagues and likewise my colleagues in other jurisdictions, they immediately get to know about the expected time of arrival of a vessel, no matter which port it is, whether it's in the eastern or the western coast of India. And so the idea is that from then on, their antennas are up, they're active, they monitor every vessel till it remains in the Indian shoreline. And in the course of that period, in that horizon, in the event that there is an act of corruption which the vessel confronts, then we urge the member companies to file a report immediately to the MAC jurisdictional outfit, which in India is me and my colleagues. So in the first instance, it is escalated to my colleague, Mr. Soumya Prakash Dalua, and then it comes up to me. So the entire rationale of the PAN is to keep us, aware. Otherwise, we get blindsided. We don't know what's happening. That is the effort. And so I would use this platform also to urge the mariners, the masters, chief officers, and the other crew to please do file PANs. And we're there to assist you. And we will be there not just one time, but also every time you come, so that, there is this typical perception that there's a pushback, and we'll come to that a little later. So if the case is reported to us, then it is escalated to me. And then what I do is I typically take it up immediately through multiple channels, an SMS, a WhatsApp message, an email, and then more importantly, a personal call to the senior-most functionary of the jurisdictional agency concerned. If it's customs, if it pertains to customs, I normally take it up directly at the level of no less than the principal chief commissioner or the chief commissioner of the jurisdictional custom house. Because it's my perception, my firm conviction, that it's the impact is felt when you take it up and drive this, hammer this down, top down, rather than do it bottom up, so that the impact and the perception and the messaging goes more effectively. But it's not just that I escalate it and I leave it at that as if it's a veritable black hole and we just forget about it. No, I actively push for it, and in terms of follow-up calls, messages, etc. And I'm glad to say that in all of the instances that we have been able to succeed, and we have, by the way, and I say this with a fair bit of pride, but also with humility, that we've had a 100% success rate in India of whatever has been reported to us. We've been able to push back, escalate, resolve those instances with successful culmination, uh, typically in the form of return of the bribes in totality. In many instances, apologies tenders. Apart from them, in several instances, the officers have been transferred out of the ports, as an administrative backlash, or the departmental disciplinary action has been initiated against them. So in all these 100% cases, success stories that we've had, the this is only because I've been able to reach out, and I'll come to that how this public sector outreach has been extremely vital, because that's led to this buy-in at the highest levels. There's recognition, and I'll come to that pretty soon. But just going back to the fact that there is this 100% success rate, there are two nuances which I must share with you. One is that we are only as good as what is reported to us. One hears across the social media platforms that all is not well. Sure, everything is not hunky dory in the country, but unless you bring it to our notice formally, and I mean, I use this rather facetiously, that I don't have a crystal ball to get up in the morning and start gazing and figuring out what is getting messed up or what's going wrong in a given port. I don't have clairvoyant, faculties that I can see and visualize. I need to be told, which is why I would use this platform to urge all stakeholders who are interested in, collaborating with us, supplementing and complementing efforts, because it's a two-way process. Is that please report to us and rest assured that we will take it up and we will resolve those cases. Now, what has happened is, why have we succeeded? It's been a challenge, but we've been able to navigate at my level, given the fact that I come from an erstwhile civil service background, culminating in the highest rank of Secretary of the Government of India. And I've had those connections, networks, which I leverage for the organizational benefit, is that we have done about close to around 33 to 35 public sector engagements of one-to-one or collective meetings at the highest levels across stakeholder ministries and organizations. Just to illustrate, starting with the Ministry of Shipping, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, at the level of four members who are part of the overall apex policy-making body of the customs organization, the commissioner and the deputy commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration, because again, in an ecosystem, in a port, you have challenges with reference. By the way, MACN deals with all acts of corruption by all stakeholder agencies of the Government of India in the public sector space, confined, of course, as I said, to reiterate, to the seaside, which could straddle from customs, immigration, port health, port state control, maritime administration, port administrations, and the likes. So coming back to it, the commissioner, the deputy commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration, the director general, the deputy director general of the Director General Health Services, the Secretary West of the Ministry of External Affairs. The reason why Secretary West is because I thought it appropriate, and in the fitness of things, that we are an international organization, and hence there is inevitably bound to be some interaction with the Foreign Office of the Government of India. And the Secretary West is the nodal point for the Western Hemisphere of the country. And since we are housed in Copenhagen, the Secretary West is directly liaising with the Western Hemisphere. That's what we come to. Likewise, the chairpersons of all the 13 major ports in the country. Then we have dealt with the chief commissioners of customs across the board, and a whole host of stakeholders. The approach, and this is at my level, when I do this, so there is a certain assurance that I bring to the table, given my past track record, etc. That when I say that, I mean it very well, and I try to diffuse the situation, because ordinarily, when you approach a government functionary, and this is no disrespect to anybody, because I was on the other side of the aisle not too far back for a good 37 years, the general reaction is, when somebody approaches a government functionary to senior level, is of skepticism. Okay, are you meaning well, or are you trying to sort of run you down, bash you, try and badmouth you? So I set the ball rolling at the outset in these interactions, that no, we are here as a supplementary agency. We are here to complement your efforts. If the Honorable Prime Minister of India is advocating zero tolerance to corruption, which is a message that's been drilled down to all ministries, departments, and public sector undertakings and organizations of the Government of India, then it's exactly what we do, and we are supplementing it. And I also assure them that the reason why MACN comes in is, and this is an important piece that I need to highlight here, MACN is not a charitable organization. It's not an NGO per se. It is a global maritime industry association, to use a cliche, for, by, and of the industry, because it's been set up under the laws of Denmark as a global maritime industry association, not as an NGO. So, there is this perception, or let's say misconception, about NGOs in the immediate context. So I'm trying to diffuse that. I said, no, we're an industry body, and we're trying to build a bridge with all of you to by reporting these cases. So, and we leave it to you then to take it up from there. So that is a sense of assurance. And consequently, in the last 3 years, there has been exemplary exemplary buy-in which you got from all these government agencies, and that's why that explains or accounts for this 100% success. But for that, it would not have been an easy task at all. Had they not been on board with us, it would not have been possible at all. That's one piece. The other piece is that we have done close to about 140 private sector engagements rigorously over a period of time in India. And these are all stats pertaining to India, because I don't want to vouch for what's happening in other jurisdictions. So I'm confining myself to the Indian landscape, or the seascape, shall I say. Now, we've got this 140 engagements with multiple shipping companies, with various agencies in the private sector associations. And these engagements are either in person, or they're virtual, or they're hybrid. For example, there are these officers forum, officers meets of various companies where we get invited, where we address them, sensitize them. We also have webinars about this. So it's worked well. So it has now come to a stage where there's a recognition by the private sector also that we are here for the long haul, not for a short term, and that we mean business in that sense of what we try and advocate. So collectively, as a result of this public-private interaction, we've been able to work our way through. So this is one as far as the help desk goes. Now, I can give you examples, of how we have succeeded. I don't want to get into 51 because that'll be way too many. We've had a recent instance where I don't know to name the company because we are, as a European outfit registered in Denmark, we are gone by the GDPR regulations, the Global Data Protection Regulations. So we cannot share with you names lest we fall foul of that. However, to say that, there was a vessel of a European company which came here to one of the ports in India. And again, so let's be and then this, unfortunately, in this instance, the PAN was not filed, though it was an MACN member. So this case, this was in Vizag. Let me expand that. This happened in Vizag. And $2,500 was extorted by the customs officer concerned. And it was reported to us rather belatedly. But as soon as it came to notice, I took it up with the jurisdictional chief commissioner, mentioned that this is not acceptable. And trust me, within 2 hours, the money was returned back to the officer, an apology tendered. And then I was also messaged by the chief commissioner, sir, that officer has been transferred out and we are taking disciplinary action against the officer. Now, in the process of this, we don't exude over enthusiasm about what happens disciplinarily to the officer concerned, because that's not in my remit. I have no jurisdiction, much less any authority. That's within the realms of the competent authority in a given department. There is a proposition of a appointing authority and a discipline authority, and we are none of that. So that's none of the business of MACN. We leave it to that. Suffice to say, as long as the wrong has been righted, so to speak, the money has been returned, and there is a sensitization, that will suffice for us. So we've had several cases. Just to give you another example, it happened in Paradeep last year. A similar amount was extorted. We got it returned completely. There was another case in Gujarat, almost 5,000 USD was extorted, again returned. So we've been able to succeed. And the average time, and I don't want to exaggerate that, is no more than 2 to 6 hours before we are able to restitute or restore status quo, because of the active, proactive pushback and my follow-up at my level with the highest authorities. The idea is that, I tell them that, look, I'm going to follow this up and till the monkey's off your back, as it were, so to speak, and that there has to be a restoration of the dignity, and that's what we expect. And luckily, touch wood, so far, fingers crossed, it's all worked very well. These are two of the umpteen cases. And also, I keep saying this often, we must also know that we also have outreach to non-members. It's not that we turn our backs on any non-member who reaches out to us. And I gave you the reasons why, because of the contribution to FAL convention, to also the MLC that we do. And that's part of our obligation that we discharge and help the Maritime Administration in fulfilling its requirements. There was a which was early last year, March last year. This was a small, vessel which was on its maiden voyage. It was built in a small shipyard in Goa, heading towards UAE, where the vessel owner was. This had Marshall Islands flag. Sorry, my apologies, Bermuda flag, and so the vessel was sailing along. So it stopped at the port of Sikka for bunkers. This was as of 1st March 2024. Small vessel, I think just about 600 GT or so, 680 GT, and with a small crew complement. They wanted to pick up bunkers, which they hadn't done, but they had intended to pick up bunkers. Unfortunately for them, they straight away fell into the confines of the customs regulations. The vessel was intercepted, and lo and behold, the vessel was even seized provisionally by customs under a panchnama. And all this while, non-members, so we were blissfully unaware because nobody reported to us for a good 8 days until 8th of March last year. The poor marine manager was running helter-skelter. He reached out, because he was a master mariner, he reached out to CMMI, Company of Master Mariners of India, expressing his frustration. So then somebody advised him, why don't you approach MACN? So then he had to look up the MACN website, figure out our coordinates, and then he reached out to my colleague at around 6:30 p.m. And that happened to be a Friday, 8th of March. I vividly remember that. So then it was brought to my notice. I said, let's have a con call with the marine manager. So three of us, the MACN and this marine manager, we did a con call. I understood I requested him to send me a copy of the Panchnama. I said, let me read it to understand what the legal implications. And I found that when that was received, I found that all the three parameters on which were invoked for this provisional seizure, was absolutely ill-founded and non-sustainable, bad in law. So then I requested for another con call around 9:30 p.m. the same day in 3 hours' time. Again, we sort of did that. And then I assured him that I would completely support this because the entire Panchnama was completely void, null and void, because all the three grounds, and I don't want to get into that here, was absolutely not sustainable in law. It was actually bad in law. So then next day morning, I called up, which is the Saturday, I called up the Jurisdictional Commissioner of Customs in Jamnagar, sensitized him. He readily agreed. He said, it's unfortunate, sir, that I'll ensure that it is released. So he did pass orders. It was communicated to the Deputy Commissioner of Customs in Sikka. Unfortunately, that was a weekend. Nothing moved. And then on Monday, it was again brought to my notice that despite the orders being passed for the provisional release, nothing had happened. So then I had to intercede and again call up the Commissioner of Customs. And I said, you please get it done immediately. And please, if the senior officer is not around, please delegate authority to somebody down the line so that the order is passed and the relief is afforded. That was only the short point. So it was a harrowing 8-10 days saga. But be that as it may, the upshot was that normally, because I was able to prove to the department that this was a case which is bad in law, normally when a provisional release which is ordered, as was in this case, there is usually inevitably an accompaniment 100% bank guarantee. And you're aware bank guarantee entails plowing money to the bank of an equivalent sum and lodging it before a bank guarantee is released. As luck would have it, the customs authorities were convinced by my articulation that this was not sustainable in law, the Panchnama, and hence they waived the entire bank guarantee. The vessel value in the Panchnama was 5.5 crores. So the relief was not only the release between 8th and 11th in 3 days' time. I mean, if you discount the weekend in between, also the fact that they were able to save this 5.5 crores of bank guarantee. So that was a huge relief. So the vessel was sailed out. And so we continue to, whenever there is an outreach by a non-member, we do not decline because we are mindful that at the end of the day, there is a seafarer welfare involved and we cannot turn our backs on anybody who reaches out to us. So this is in sum and substance.
This is really, really amazing. And thank you for explaining it so very comprehensively, sir. And let
Thank
me
you.
just summarize for our viewers. So essentially, and I'm just probably talking about the member company. So the process, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the company has to be a member. In India, of course, non-members are also catered to, thanks to you. That's number one. Number two, you'll have to file a pre-arrival notice, a PAN.
Sure.
Once the
Absolutely.
pre-arrival notice is submitted, there are best practices which are being provided from MACN to the company, and you listed a few best practices as well. Once that is done, then in a way, the vessel is under the radar and it's being actively monitored by MACN.
Indeed, indeed.
And now, if there is any business integrity, any corruption incident which happens, that's the time when it is advised to report that incident. And
Sure.
once it is reported, and as you mentioned, in a couple of cases, the solution came in hours, and you mentioned three to
In
six
all
hours.
cases, in all of those
Oh,
instances,
wow.
in all of
Oh,
those
that's
instances, no more than 6 hours. And this is,
uh,
mind you, many of them, Captain Gaurav, is that they were on a post-mortem because post the incident occurring, not reported to us. So we had to go back and salvage the situation. And it was like after the money had been paid, we were not kept informed. In many of them, the pans were not filed with us. And yet, when they brought it to notice almost 24 hours later, we were able to push back. But we've been able to do it no more than in 6 hours, 100% in all of those cases.
right. This is really amazing, sir. And you were saying something?
Yeah. So if I may just, if you allow me very quickly to add, we've also introduced effective from just about 2 months ago, the proposition of an associate membership, which is confined to the jurisdiction. At a second stage level, where members on payment of around 700 USD, unlike 5,000 one time at a global membership level and annually 5,000. This is on $700 per annum. They can subscribe and become associate members. The access is only for activities within India. They don't get to attend the two member meetings which happen, one in Europe and one in other jurisdictions. So that's again a country-specific membership which we have just sort of unveiled and launched. Again, this is a good time to reach out to all of you who wish to become members. Please contact my colleague, Mr. Soumya Prakash Daluva. This membership option is available at a secondary level. If I may just also add that while the centerpiece of the pivot of our work is the helpline, there are several other things that we also do. For instance, there is a huge component of capacity building. There are 5 modules, all of them on the e-modules platform, where there are compact advisories, if I may put it, which are there customized for 5 different stakeholder constituencies. One e-module is for the senior officers on board a vessel, such as a master, a chief engineer, chief officer, a second engineer, etc., as to what they need to do in terms of a best practice, worst case scenario, what's the national law, what is the international law, and what are some of the cases that have been actually handled. Likewise, there is one e-module which is dedicated for operating teams at the back end. And it's so relevant because you have been a mariner yourself, that whenever you confront a crisis, there is this SOP that every company worth its salt has in place. We to expect to go back and reach out to the operating team, which is available 24/7 at the back end in the company for consultation and advice. So we decided that they are a key player because unless they back up the frontline crew, there is no way that the crew can stand up, and push back against that. So it's to ensure that the operating teams are fully aligned and they stand by the crew through thick and thin. So there is a module which is customized for them. There is a module for PNI agents. There is a module for port agents. And the last one launched a few months ago was for young cadets and trainees who are making an entry into the seafaring career. This is not to scaremonger and put them off, but to give them a reality check that, look, when you're getting in, it's not as if they are not been aware of corruption in other walks of life. I mean, I'm sure the parents would have talked about it in other walks, in other. So this is just to sensitize that, look, as when you get into this profession, this is what you may be up against, and this is how you'll combat, so that there is a level of preparedness, so that when they enter the profession, they're already been default mode. They've been set. This is what you can do, and by the way, all these five modules are available on an e-basis to all the member companies. And once somebody subscribes, these are offered as part of the package with access control, password, and all of that is available. However, the one for the next generation of seafarers, that's young cadets and trainees, that's been offered gratis without any charge as a good gesture to all the DG shipping approved maritime training institutes at the pre-C level, which we've offered to them so that they can, run it for their own cadets and trainees. Only subject to the fact that they should get into us with an NDA agreement, non-disclosure. The idea is that when we offer it free of charge, we don't want them to monetize inadvertently. So to that extent, they have to sign a binding NDA with us, after which we offer it to them. And it's been running successfully in many MTIs, pre-C MTIs. So this is a big chunk of the capacity building offer that we make. Then there are several others. For want of time, I will not dwell. It's all available on the website. But most importantly, in India, we have taken upon at my level the task of doing business process re-engineering, or what I call as a systems change. I look at low-hanging fruits of where the processes are going wrong. I'll just give you two quick illustrations. One is, there is this inward pratique and there is an outward port clearance every vessel has to undergo. Now, this is a function that has been delegated to the boarding officer of customs at a preventive officer level, usually. I looked at it and I found that empirically, or in cases out of number, there were complaints coming to us in MACN in India that there has been delay, sometimes with a threat of denial of a port clearance. And that means it has got, multiplier implications. A delay entails costs, right? Because the vessel has to stay longer, and there are no free lunches. It all entails costs, and they keep multiplying exponentially. So then I said, why is this happening? So I looked at it critically. I found that Section 410 of the Merchant Shipping Act 1958, of course, now the 2025 version, is that this power of grant of a PC, which is otherwise invested in the DG shipping, has been delegated to the jurisdictional commissioners of customs almost 20, 25, 30 years ago, with on the premise that this will be discharged in good faith. Now, obviously, that's not happened because it's all happening in bad faith. And I must qualify and say this is not institutional corruption. This is some officers who have gone rogue. Let me put that very, very clearly in by framing that context. So then I said, no, this is just not done. So then I wrote a 3-page policy document, submitted it to Mr. Amitabh Kumar, who was my 2IC second in command when I was DG, he was my additional DG. I submitted it to him in September 28th, 2022, writing a policy paper saying that he should write a letter to the chairman of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs saying that there should be and what was the sort of infirmity in this process? It was all offline. It was paper based. Applications were being made for PC or inward pratic, and that's where somebody who wanted to play foul was holding it up to ransom in the expectation to be paid. I said, instead of that, let's transform it into an e-governance process. Let it be an application filed online entirely. In the website of the CBIC, let it be put out, including that of the DG shipping, as to what are the documents to be filed along with that in supplement to the application. And in no more than 3 hours, that should be part embedded in the SOP. It should be granted, failing which the officer concerned will be held to account and is to explain why he has not been able to grant the PC for more than 3 hours. At the end of the day, let's go back in time as to what a PC is all about. PC is an underlying document, as you would know, having been a mariner, that it testifies to the fact that all dues to the government agencies have been discharged and the vessel is good to go, whether it's to the ports, to the customs, income tax, and what have you. That's the fundamental proposition underlying rationale of a PC. So then I said, once you commit this and then also link an e-payment gateway to this architecture, saying that administrative fee will be paid online through the e-payment gateway. So effectively, there is no physical interaction. And that's where it's all gets messed up the moment people meet up, So this becomes now an e-governance process. There is no footfall in the office at all. And I'm happy to say that this has been accepted. And today it's all going to get included in the National Logistic Portal, NLP, in the marine component. So this has been a contribution, a tangible contribution of MAC in India, which I had articulated and written to the government of India, which has now been accepted in principle. It's a low-hanging fruit. It provides relief. And I'll say this because we have seen instances, we have observed very closely that at even an hour of delay empirically can lead to costs of 10 to $15,000 per hour, in terms of fuel costs, wages, extra wages, somebody missing the schedule in another port of call, and all kinds of complications. So we are able to extrapolate and say that we today in India map can go on record to state we also monitor in every case reported to us, not only a resolution of the corruption incident, but also the fact that we make sure that a vessel sails out on the dot of time without any delay. Happy to say, in all these 100% success stories that I talked about, in every one of them, we have ensured that the vessel, because we monitor that as an extra responsibility which we have taken upon ourselves, not really called for, but we said no, because there is this gap, where people can play around and cause havoc. So we're happy to say that vessels are able to sail out on time, which has led to significant cost savings. And today, if I compute on an average of the costs that have been done, close to about 8 lakh US dollars is what we have been able to save hypothetically or notionally to in all these cases that we've been able to deal with. So the second and the final piece I wanted to submit is I looked at another infirmity is that today there are multiple stakeholders, public agencies who call for information from shipping companies or masters, different agencies, whether it's customs, immigration, port health, and all of them are seeking that information from the standpoint of their own respective organizations legislation. If it's customs is looking at it information under the ambit of the Customs Act, immigration from the Immigration Act, DG shipping from the Merchant Shipping Act, ports from the Port Act, etc. So I said, why is this to be done today? I looked at, analyzed the FAL committee work, the body of work FAL committee has done, incredible work where they are able to standardize information seeking, codify it, and render it an entirely online process. So I said, if IMO has done so much of good work, why is it that we cannot adopt this international best practice into our framework? So then, and I also found that interestingly, India has already ratified the FAL Convention in all its national legislation, whether it's Customs Act, Immigration Act, Health Act, etc. And ironically, the officers are also attending the FAL committee meetings once a year in London. Notwithstanding that, we have not been able to look at and say that let's pick up this good work, the best practice, and amalgamate into our systems. So I wrote another 3-page policy paper suggesting that this is the flaw and that we should completely eliminate this. It should become an entirely online process, and the government may choose to nominate one particular agency. I mean, that's the government's discretion. I have no one to recommend who they should, but only one agency will seek information from the stakeholder, and that to online. And they will spell out in that as to what are the supplementary documents if required. Again, connecting it to the e-payment gateway. And once that agency receives that, through algorithm or a software at the back end, it can disseminate it amongst all other stakeholder government agencies on a need to know basis with access control, as the case may be. Also delighted to mention that this has also been accepted in the government of India. Today, that's going to form part of the NLP Marine. So this is another substantive, tangible value add contribution that we've been able to make in terms of a process, business process reengineering, because we believe that processes should migrate onto the into the virtual world, so to speak, into the WW mode as such. Because if you eliminate physical interface, I think a great deal of relief can be afforded, because operating at a physical space is where all the havoc tends to happen, extortion, harassment, and the like. So you cut out that link and make it faceless. That's our endeavor. So two policy papers accepted, now being part of the NLP. And the third, which I'm writing now, is also to see that whether we can do away with boarding, mechanistic or ritualistic boarding of officers of customs every time around. This is a legacy stipulation under the Customs Act 1962, But world over, in mature, advanced maritime nations, this is not so. There is, an assessment through risk management softwares. A profile of a ship is gauged well before it comes in. Assessed whether there is a vulnerability to this in terms of the profile of the ship per se, and also the kind of cargo, the destination from where it is coming. Through risk management software, all of this is configured, and routinely vessels are not boarded in those countries. What they do is, if there is an intelligence input specifically, or if there is a information that comes in pointedly that there is contraband or there is a security breach, then by all means, the agency must board, and because that's a sovereign function, and nobody can take that away from them. But otherwise, on a routine basis, that's not what it is done. So I'm writing a paper now. Hopefully, in the next 2 months, I should be able to submit it, saying that with no compromise in the sovereign authority of the government agencies in those exceptional cases where there is an input of intelligence or information, other than that, routine boarding should be dispensed with. And I also will be articulating a specific empirical evidence that during COVID, this actually happened. Officers did not board, and dare I say, hell did not break loose. Nothing went wrong. But typically, as is the mindset, post COVID, it again came back to square one, with officers start boarding. So if boarding is dispensed with on a ritualistic basis, then a great deal of this, all of this pushback can really happen significantly. So our endeavor going forward on an ongoing basis from MAC in India is also to contribute very, very demonstrably, tangibly, to making policy changes for the betterment, so that the causative factors, the root causes are identified, addressed, and there's a redressal. Because typically, my firm belief of having served in the government for so long, and it's my firm conviction, is that we may do a case to case intervention. I mean, that's part of our ambit and remit. We will be happy to do that, and we'll continue to do so going forward. But at the end of the day, it is important that for us to do this business process or systems changes, because that's where you are able to then change the landscape, improve policies and the governance mechanism. That's our endeavor.
So just amazing one. So this
No, thank you
just
so
so
much.
much.
It's still
So
a work in progress, and it's a very small contribution. There is so much to do, honestly, but it's a challenging
um,
ask. And if I may just allow me, it's a thankless task. But I keep saying that, again, in lighter vein, I'm not here to become Mr. Popular and walk the ramp of popularity. This is a function that we have to discharge in the best interest of the seafaring community as well as the maritime industry, and we will do so no matter what people might say to us. But today, happy to say that the pushback is such today through word of mouth. Port is a small ecosystem. If you're able to push back with one agency A, through word of mouth, it spreads amongst others. So there's a multiplier effect, and that's the kind of messaging we want it to be drilled down. So happy to leave with this thought at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So you mentioned about the capacity building modules, which you have, the 5E modules. That's a great initiative. I may reach out to you separately. You mentioned there is a module for the cadets as well. So maybe if
Sure.
we could also have it, this is the NDA, I'll probably reach out to you separately so that we can
Sure, sure.
disseminate that the good work as well.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Happy to do that.
right. So, I, a couple of things from the seafarer perspective. So, I've been a seafarer, and so one thing is that through our platform, maybe to the companies which have not still subscribed, registered to MACN, if a person wants to report, what is the phone number? Where could we report to? What's the email ID, please, if you could advise on that?
Sure. So what I can do is I can share that separately with you. I can pull out the country page. I did refer to that, that in
Right,
each of these eight jurisdictions, there are functionaries of MACN.
right,
There are different models which are operating, by the way. For example, in Nigeria, it is the Shippers Council, which is the front end of interface
right,
with the public agencies. In India, we
right.
have our own presence here. For example, in Pakistan and Bangladesh, you have the UN Global Compact, which is a body which has collaborated with MACN. So they have their functionaries who discharge this. But what I will do is I will urge the seafarers to please look up the MACN website, which is www. MACN.dk. DK is Denmark. So please look it up. There are country profiles in which everything about the country and the coordinates, the contact coordinates, the point of contact is all spelled out. But I can separately share that page with you for India. so that you know who is to be reached out, and you can disseminate it at a wider basis amongst the seafaring community.
Thank you, sir. One final question, sir. Now, and it's not just limited to probably the seafarers, but generally in public, there is a perception that, to take the easier path. It's happening, you just kind of do away with. There are, I mean, this is the inhibition that if we report, what is going to happen to us? Is our name going to be, will our name come out or not? How would maybe, and over here you are essentially reporting to probably one of the government authorities, right? It's probably to a person against a person, but ultimately the person is working for an authority. So there is that inhibition. There is what would happen to a person. So your message to probably seafarers over here, that if they face what should they be doing? Is there a level of
So,
security which is to them? Would their name be remaining anonymous? And so what's your message to the seafarers in case they come up with such practices?
an extremely valid question, very well taken, because if I was on the other side of the aisle, I would also probably have this at the back of the mind, at the top of my head, really. Now, three nuances in response very quickly. One is that please rest assured, I mean, this is again to all of those who are tuning in and you can sort of propagate this on a wider basis, is that under no circumstances do we reveal the name of the functionary who reports the incident to us. We are absolutely clear in terms of a whistleblower protection that we shield that name, the identity completely. However, the crux of the complaint is reported without attributing to the source. And we also urge, and I will use this platform to urge, that please provide us with evidence that you can, to the extent that you can mobilize. For example, it could be pictorial evidence, it could be documentary evidence, for example, a gangway log register where the entry of that officer is shown up and down, so that we know that who's that officer concerned. So we have that. If there is a CCTV camera footage that can be provided, that will be helpful. The idea is that a complaint which is anonymous, which is again, I'll reiterate and sort of assuage all those who are hearing me, is that we do not reveal the name, but yet it is not anonymous in the sense it is not incredulous, because we provide the substance of the complaint as well as whatever evidence is available. The reason why I'm saying this, and I'm being very guarded, since I was in the government of India at the highest levels, I'm mindful of the fact that under the Central Vigilance Commission, the CVC, which is the overarching constitutional body, and I must emphasize this word, is the constitutional body for anti-graft or anti-corruption. There are guidelines categorical written down to government agencies that a completely anonymous complaint without substance is not to be taken cognizance of, for obvious reason that tomorrow somebody has an axe to grind, vendetta against an officer, can take the easy path and and rubbish somebody's tarnished reputation. So this has been reiterated over a period of time. But this also goes on to say, if there is credible information in that anonymous complaint, then that has to be taken cognizance of and proceeded with. So I'm taking a cue from that and saying that we will not reveal your name. We'll have to tell the name of the vessel, however, because without that, how does anybody proceed? The name of the vessel, the location of the vessel, that's the port, the date, time, etc. And the basic substance of the complaint. And whatever evidence that you can mobilize and submit it to us. So this we provide, and that's how the pushback has happened in all these cases. Now, there is also a third nuance to this, which I must assure you, all of you here, is that you may be feeling that, if we report what happens, there might be a pushback against us. There could be retribution against us, not only this time, but also next time they come. But we have demonstrated in case out of case, we've assured wherever we've actually been able to resolve, that we are here not just one time. If that same vessel comes back any number of times, whether into any part of India, we are there to stand by you, and we will ensure that If you face a instance like that, report it to us. There was one particular case, just to give you an example, in Cochin it happened. Um, a master, a European master, refused the entry of the Black Gang, which is the rummaging gang, who just boarded 45 minutes before the departure of the vessel. He said, "No, I will not allow you because I'm all preparing for departure. And you don't have any, what have you come for?" It's like a more like a fishing expedition that they boarded just to do a routine search. He says, "I will not allow this to happen. You should have come earlier." So they said, "Okay, a typical Indian language, hum aapko dekh lenge." I said, "Fine." So then a month later, the vessel came to Cochin again. So then I was contacted by the managing director of that company early at about 7:30 in the morning, saying, "Sir, this is what it is." So the master's fearing. He's already got a summon from the superintendent of customs saying that to ask him to report. I said, "Please tell the master from my side. Let him go there. Let him be accompanied by an agent's representative. Nothing will happen. I will speak to the commissioner of customs. There'll be a statement recorded and it'll be factual, and the master should not say anything other than facts." And I can assure you that nothing went wrong. No action was taken against the master. The evidence was recorded factually, and the matter ended there. We had another case just to illustrate. Indian master who was on a European carrier came to Nava Sheva. This was again, I think, sometime May last year, 2024. He had an unfortunate episode with the customs, which I was able to redress completely and get the money returned back. But then he feared that he would, and then the complaint was filed. The officers, customs officers, boarded to verify the complaint. So then he literally threw a fit, saying that, why are they coming? I just wanted to complain. I don't have time for them. So he ignored them. Likewise, the chief officer just ignored them. They had come as a separate set of vigilance officers to verify the complaint. So I got frantic calls from the one European capital from the company senior management saying that this is what happened. I said, "Please be assured, this is how the process unfolds in India by law. They are doing the verification to fact find whether there is evidence and to proceed against the officers." I said, "Nothing wrong will happen. They will disembark as soon as this process is done." So by around 9:30 that night, the customs officers disembarked, the vigilance officers. That was not enough. The next day morning, the promptly I get a mail from the master with the operating team copied in Europe, saying that the vessel is he apprehends that the vessel will not be allowed to sail. I called him back and I told him that I actually had I luckily he had given his mobile number. I picked up a call again 9:15 in the morning, spoke to him for 13 minutes. He said, "I'm so and so. I assure you that there'll be no delay and you will not have a pushback." He said, "Sir, I'm also fearing that I'm coming back a month later and I'm signing off from Navasheva." I said, "You have my number. This is, please carry it with you, keep it with you, come back. If you have, when you come back, let me know." The vessel sailed out on the dot. I said, "Nothing will happen." A month later, this captain master comes back, signs off without any issue because we were monitoring it. So we ensured that we told the company that we are keeping a close tab. If you find, we've already sensitized, I had already sensitized the chief commissioner, the vessel is coming back and I don't want any pushback against the crew. And sure enough, that's what happened. So handholding is not just one time. Every time the vessel comes to the fear. Just finally, I'll submit, though it's getting a bit stretched. There is a vessel in Taiwan, a company, I don't want to name it, a very prominent company, which was very skeptical. I'm an MACN member. It attended the members' meeting, which took place in Mumbai in September 2023. So, on the margins, the sidelines, the MD and another senior officer from Taipei came and met me that they had an unfortunate episode a month earlier in August in Vizag, but they're not reported. And it was already more than a month and a half. There was nothing much could be done. I assured them that's not the case. Please reach out to us now. We did 12 handholdings for them in the last 2 years, in the sense that whenever a vessel would come in, we would have a virtual meeting interaction with the management team in Taipei, the master as far as possible to make sure that nothing went wrong. Post this 12 handholdings, today now they've affirmed to us they are confident and I think they are absolutely certain that they are not facing any situation now because they have felt the impact of MACN in these 12 cases. So that's how it happens. I know that there is a lot of misgiving, reservation, skepticism. It's understandable. If I was on the other side of the aisle, I would also have felt the same. But this is what we do, and this is an assurance we will hold out that we will continue to discharge in the same vein as we go forward.
It's just so amazing, sir. I've probably
Thank
just
you.
heard of, wherein I heard that one person with good intentions could literally, change the way we work, the way we
No, no, I am very
receive.
fortunate.
So
I don't want to claim credit because it's just that, and I owe it to my colleagues in MAC in India, also to the, the vast network of officers in various departments for which I had already done advanced paid work. And that's like, the dividends are getting paid now because they see that we are a credible organization. We are not to damage their reputation. We're only there to supplement. Likewise, the industry stakeholders, the partners. So it's a collective effort. And this is how it ought to be.
I'm sure, but the person at the helm, that's the
No,
person
thank
who
you so
drives
much.
all
That's
of
very
this.
kind of you. Very
And
gracious of you. Thank you.
really, sir, I think it's very, very incredible work that's been done. And I don't think there would have been any person better than you
No,
for this position at MACN and the work that you are doing for MACN, for the shipping fraternity, for the mariners. I think this is really amazing, sir.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
It's just
much.
that I look forward to this as an opportunity for me to give back whatever I gained in those 6 phenomenal years that I spent in the maritime administration and the earlier in customs, because having seen it up front and center at close quarters, so I know exactly what the pain points are and where you need to intervene in and in good time. So it's just that I happen to be in the right place at the right time, and I'm grateful to God for this opportunity. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your work, sir. And probably
Thank
we should have keep this going. So whenever there is anything new which is coming up, whichever
Please
would
feel
like
free.
to disseminate any new information, would be
Sure,
would
sure.
love to kind of happy to support on
Likewise,
this.
I would look forward. And again, in closing, I would like to offer my profuse thanks, both personally as well as an organization, for this incredible opportunity that you offered to us, because this is a wide platform where you can disseminate this vital message. And I hope it resonates well. And if there are any questions from anybody, we are more than happy to address it separately. So please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Many,
Thank
many,
you.
many thanks once again, Captain Gaurav Rana, and also to your colleague.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.
And I will take this opportunity to wish the entire seafaring community my very best personally and professionally.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.